This episode of the podcast has been brought to you by Sweet Cheetah Publicity. Sweet Cheetah is an inclusive, socially conscious PR collective that puts their money where their mouth is. They have a current roster of bands that reads like a greatest hits anthology. Brainiac, Catholic School, Jawbox, The New Amsterdams, Oceans in the Sky. The list goes on and on. They also do PR for record labels such as A La Carte, Arctic Rodeo, Steadfast, Rad Girlfriend, and so many more. How do they pay it forward? How do they put their money where their mouth is? By generating thousands of dollars in annual charitable donations to the likes of Women in Vinyl, Coalition of Communities of Color, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and many, many more. The man has the receipts. I've seen them. It is real. The artists, labels, and podcasts Sweet Cheetah works with are curated with an eye on working primarily with friends. You could find Sweet Cheetah on all of the social media platforms, be it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just look for Sweet Cheetah PR and they will be there. He's been Tim, I've been Peter, and Sweet Cheetah has been beautiful. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. I'm your host Peter, and I am still here. And tonight, I'm pleased to bring to you Damien Moyal. Damien has been in Culture. He's been in As Friends Rust. Name a band. He's been in many. But tonight, I'm here for one reason only. That being Total Power, the new record by Damien and I. Total Power is 9 tracks that run the gamut as far as dark musics are concerned. We have Pray For Me, which is, as he would put it, the most on-the-nose post-punk song on the record. But this entire record dabbles in darkness of all sort. It's just a matter of which way it's presented. These are all very, very bleak, very artistic songs, as executed by a man who does not consider himself a musician, which is incredible to me. But I think the results are exquisite. I think this is the better record of his 2 full lengths, and I love Charm Offensive so much. Total Power is the ultimate statement, and I can only hope that this is a sign of more to come from Damien Dunn. Now let me get a couple little, necessities out of the way. If you like what you're hearing, please like, rate, subscribe, write a review, share with your friends. I would be very appreciative. Now, there's myriad ways you can financially support us. Those are well trodden upon, Venmo, PayPal, blah, 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 blah. Any support is appreciated. The best way to support us is by letting other people know how cool you think this show is. If you would do that, I will keep bringing this to you. On with the show. Damien and I, as evidenced from our last episode together, which was not an episode, it was 2 episodes, split up by 1 week. We get together and we just lock in. We inhabit our own little space together, and it's amazing. I cut out half of our conversation this time around. I will not be offering a part 2. This is the meat of the conversation. We were together for over 4.5 hours for this episode. The rest of the conversation was mostly for us anyway, as 2 friends catching up, talking about what's important to us. What I've got for you right here is the cream of the crop. I hope you enjoy it. This record's amazing. Without further ado, I give to you Damien Moyal of Damien Done on the book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Hello.
Yo, what's up?
What's up, brother?
Oh, chilling. Let's see here.
All good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I've been living with the new song, Pray For Me. Last time we talked, I brought up, kind of like a halfway sort of connection to darker music that people who used to be in hardcore bands are making. And I know you don't feel like you're a part of that, and you're not. But Pray For Me is easily the closest you've ever come to making a post-punk song, in my opinion. Don't know how you feel about that, but it feels like
it's a lot more on the nose. I will say it's as bad an indication of what the album will be like as any other song I could have kicked it off with. It's the only one that fully 90s goth club kind of dance floor, just creepy, crawly, kind of gothy post-punk. Yeah, that was the only one that was like really, really just kind of on the nose, because I just felt like, I just wanted to go for it one time for your mind. Yeah. But yeah, I know what you're saying. In the past stuff, there's been like a post-punk flavor or influence kind of underpinning stuff. This isn't a flavor. This is just a straight up like gothy post-punk kind of club song, dance floor song.
And you're also including Black Moon. I'm guessing Black Moon's being re-recorded, and there's another, I believe, also that we've heard before from the album.
Yeah, there were 3 demos at the end of 2020. I did a demos from the year 2020, and it was 3 songs. Their demo's a little misleading because a lot of times it's not like once the songs are written, we go back and record them all from scratch. They're more kind of like they're works in progress. They're kind of rough mixes. It's tracking and retracking, but always kind of in the same file. We just keep, making tweaks until we have it the way we want it, and then we send it off to be mixed. But so I would say an earlier version of all 3 of the songs from demos from the year 2020, Black Moon, Maw, and Always on Fire. All 3 of those are on the full length, along with 6. Yeah, and 6 newer ones.
So they weren't demos. They were like the bones.
Yeah. It kind of always starts with like one file. You pick your tempo and you just start sort of building. And are we rolling already?
Yeah, I always hit the ground running. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just no, that's good. We'll just jump right into it. What was different about this record was, in the past, I was always a lot more prescriptive about the demos, where it was like, look, here's the beat, here are all the guitar tracks, and basically the band at the time was kind of just learning them for the sake of the live show. Except for the Tonight EP, in which case the full band at the time just went in and actually recorded it live. But this time around, it was basically like I get a melody or a riff or something. I open it up. I pick the tempo. I build some drums, and I track. Uh, Usually, I'll start by just programming really obviously fake uh, bass and even guitar. Sometimes, if I don't feel like getting up and plugging in and stopping what I'm doing, sometimes I'll just use the keys, to sort of play the guitar line. And then later I'll replace those with real guitars. This time around, it was kind of like I would go that far, and then I would turn it over to Tyler, the other guitarist, and he played most. I played very little guitar on this new album, actually. I think maybe 2 or 3 songs have like guitars that I actually strummed or played. Because he basically would just be like, yeah, I got it. Do you want me to track your parts too, or just whatever I write for my parts? And I was like, track it all, man. Just have at it. So I just focused on drums and vocals. And I mean, I would still, I'd write bass lines, program them, and sometimes he would just play the guitars the way that I wrote them or whatever. But for the most part, it was kind of you're just building. You're just kind of stacking layers, and
I would think, like, especially with the past 2 years you've had, you're doing a lot of work. You've had already a slew of releases in 2022. 23, it's looking like between this and As Friends Rust's new records coming out this year, I'm guessing, right?
Yep.
My goodness.
We are. We just emailed off our final pass of mix notes, so I think probably by like tomorrow night the whole thing will be done for As Friends Rust.
Jesus Christ!
And then XXXVI is also kind of, we're working on a record too right now.
My God! And that just came out.
That just came out. That demo came out, and now and basically as soon as it came out, we had like 10 songs on deck for an album. But now we're taking our time because we got Fred in on drums, and we're just kind of like, the demo was a very impulsive, knee-jerk kind of like wrote it, put it out very quickly. This time we're like, yeah, maybe we can just slow down a little bit now and like pay more attention to the arrangements and try to get it. But that'll also be, I don't know if it'll come out in 23, but that's also on the plate. And then Dave from XXXVI, the guy writing most of the music, he and I started something else on the side, and we're on like our 4th or 5th song for that too. So yeah.
Well,
busy.
I can't imagine what other like kind of musical stratosphere you could possibly. Are you doing an industrial project? Because that's the only thing that's kind of missing right now.
No. We're doing we're calling the style glam rock, because it's basically like very hair metal on the music end, but still just really vile and gross vocally. So it's basically like we're just kind of carrying the XXXVI sort of vocal and thematic thing over to the other thing that we sort of bond over regularly in text messages and stuff, which is like, White Lion and Wasp and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, glam rock.
You're actually upping the ante on what Entombed did when they were doing the whole like death and roll thing.
Yeah. It's not so much death and roll as what was our alternate descriptor? It was I don't remember. But yeah, the problem with that's where I got off the Entombed. I can't do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Although there have been a few other bands that went in direction sort of described as maybe I just didn't like it for Entombed. It just felt it was more personal.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wolverine Blues was kind of like where I stopped with them.
Yeah.
Like that, To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth was quite possibly the worst of like that whole earache Columbia, even though it wasn't on that label, it was
Yeah.
born of that fruit. I couldn't get on board with it. It just didn't feel fun anymore.
No, it wasn't, and people love that record too. I think the problem was I don't have an idea, or I don't have a problem with the idea of bringing more rock and roll into it, or I guess kind of back into it if you trace the lineage.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the way they were doing it, and I think it's because they started doing it at a time, where groove was kind of ruining everything. It was like
the Pantera of it all. And
yeah, and look, I don't mind Pantera music anyway, but it was sort of the beginning. It was a changing of the guard. Like there was like a new sheriff and all of a sudden it was like Dickies and shaved heads in place of long hair and high top sneakers and tight jeans and stuff, and everything changed. It got a lot more macho, a lot more like see you in the fucking pit,
Yeah.
And whatever, there was a lot of great stuff that came out around that time, and I listened to my fair share of Biohazard and
Oh yeah.
and all the worst perpetrators of that. It's fine, But what it did, I think, for Entombed was by the time they got around to like incorporating rock and roll in their death metal, it was like bad early 90s version of rock and roll. Like there wasn't any sleaze. There was just, a little bit of a raunchy grit to the chugging, but it didn't feel.
To me, it felt more like Zakk Wylde influenced almost in a way, and not in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they were listening to a bunch of Aussies, like early 90s output, like No More Tears, and thinking, well, we're going to go in this direction.
Yeah.
And that bummed me out because we still had At the Gates at that time.
That's also a bit groove, though. You could also argue that was like that turning point for like Ozzy too, after like No Rest for the Wicked, when things got, and it's good stuff. There's good material there, but it's arguably also more groove affected. I think it was everything, and then Hatebreed did it to hardcore. Kind of all of these like groove hammers fell at once on all these different scenes.
Yeah, and like, do you blame Pantera? I kind of do. I blame Exorder first, but then Pantera, who are arguably the same band.
Yeah. No, I think I definitely they sort of symbolize that shift. Which was all kind of, I think emotions were already running high because everyone was still sort of like, we already didn't know what to do about the Black Album.
Yeah.
Everything just felt like it was changing, and I think that pushed people sort of, in one direction or another. But
it's scary that it kind of happened to all of the subsets of like what one would consider extreme or more alternative musics. Everything kind of got flushed down the same toilet at one point. And even like I remember in the late 80s really liking White Zombie a lot, like a whole lot, because they were grimy and they kind of almost sounded like shit, but in a great way. And they had more in common with Sonic Youth kind of than they did with what they became. And they also manned the change around that time. I remember seeing them on tour with Into Another and thinking this was going to be a great show. And then I went to see it and I was not impressed. Having been the age I was in that time period was a big bummer and a big call to nostalgia, I think, for me musically.
Yeah.
Because I just kept going back then. Like I'll just listen to Coroner and be happy.
Yeah, I'll be happy with that too.
Yeah, who wouldn't? But,
You know, I'm realizing kind of around the same time it was, you know, so obviously it happened in metal and hardcore, and then we just sort of touched on like Ozzy-ish kind of strains of like hard rock or like radio metal.
mhm.
It was also happening to Helmet. It was also happening to Hum. You know, it was like their groove really did sort of take over. Things got like mids got scooped, you know, leads disappeared, and everything just became much more like sort of rhythm, like chunky and rhythmic snapcase. You know,
Yeah.
it was kind of it was really rampant. It was a 90s thing. I think if you look back at the 90s, groove might be a descriptor that's applicable to I don't know, maybe all the fucking music of the 90s. Maybe I need to go back and listen to some more slow jams or like pop hits and see if the groove get to shy too.
It could have been. It legitimately could have also been that golden era renaissance of hip hop, because it was so inescapable and it was so influential. You know what I mean? You could see a metal band like Guns N' Roses with NWA shirts on, and Biohazard hanging out with Onyx, and even all the way back to Sick of It All having KRS-One on a record. These things were bound to be together.
Right.
How it affected radio rock is probably the biggest surprise to me, because for a guy in an extreme metal band or a hardcore band to like hip hop, not a big stretch, not really.
Mm-mm.
But, you know, people in these more acceptable genres of music at the time period to have kind of received that same zeitgeist, to me, it almost has to be hip hop.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, hip hop definitely was having a moment, and you could see like those sort of looped programmed beats or grooves sort of permeating other, you know, other types of music. Yeah, there was a lot more crossing over and kind of reaching across the aisle.
Yeah, and you could kind of also sort of blame Anthrax with Public Enemy, and then the Judgment Night soundtrack, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All conversations lead back to the Judgment Night soundtrack, I think.
Yeah.
I've had more conversations about that soundtrack than I think almost any album. And half of it was absolutely unlistenable in all reality, but the other half was kind of brilliant, you know, in its way.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember there were being like a couple songs I didn't care for as much as the others, but I don't think there were any like really offensive stinkers. It was like yeah, there was just good shit on there, and you know, it's been a while since I've listened to it, but yeah, you had like De La Soul.
That's the one I go back to. That and Del.
Del was Blur on that, not Blur. Or like Happy Mondays or Teenage Fan Club or something.
Teenage Fan Club, and oh man, it was Teenage Fan Club and son of a bitch. I really don't remember, but I know it was Dinosaur Jr. and Del, and I think it was De La and Teenage Fan Club.
That might have been, yeah, that might have been the Dallas Souls. You know what? So this is interesting too, because so if we correlate like groove with a certain amount of sort of like machismo, right? Toughness, which also kind of culturally changed the landscapes of like metal and, you know, scenes like that were all pretty good timey before then. All of a sudden it was like, oh, now you got to watch out for, you know, this meathead over here. It's also when sort of that shift in hip hop things took a much more like gangster sort of turn,
Yeah.
right? Like that Daisy era of De La Soul kind of Tribe, Jungle Brothers kind of stuff, like was sort of pretty much done, you know.
Yeah.
Ending. It was ending. I think Diggable Planets was kind of the last, you know, the death rattle of that whole thing for a while, of like backpacky kind of smart, feel good, jazzy, chill hip hop. And then it's got a lot more like a lot more drive-by kind of, you know, like a lot more gangstery. So I think just in general, the like that sort of chest beating masculinity kind of just the knob got bumped up all of a sudden, I think in the early 90s across the entire kind of musical, you know, universe.
And you know, there's a through line, obviously, for you on this record, because Black Moon is on this, and you're a big Black Moon fan.
Yeah,
I'm a big Black Moon fan. They're phenomenal, and they did kind of encapsulate a lot of that gangsterish,
yeah,
but with the dark beats, almost like Gravediggers.
They were at that transition. They were sort of, I love those moments where it's like they're not De La Soul, but they're also not, you know, I don't know, NWA or whatever. It's like, yeah, this they're still keeping all of that sort of New York backpack kind of jazzy East Coast sound, but it's not daytime. It's like 1 a.m, and it's like eerily quiet, and it's just darker, and yeah, there's like a violent kind of street, you know, sort of feel that's a lot more kind of gangstery than other, you know, groups from New York at the time, but it hadn't fully gone into that direction. They never kind of fully went into that direction. I love that sort of darker, like the grittier. It's like the bizarro De La and Tribe, and you know, on the side of that coin, you got like Helter Skelter and Black Moon and Smith and Wesson and shit.
Yeah, that's all the stuff that I think is kind of under, or maybe not fully underappreciated, but definitely not as celebrated as some of the other artists that we've mentioned. And I think that, you know, kind of goes for a lot of the outliers in all genres at that time period, because we still, you know, for every Biohazard, there was a Fugazi. You know, there's always the answer to the thing that's happening, you know, the thing that's prevalent. Even like going back to Culture, you guys were still on the straight edge tip, but you weren't Earth Crisis about it. There's always that answer. And I think right now with this record, you're kind of providing that answer to the people who are not fed up, but kind of looking for something that's still dark and seething, but not Cold Cave, not Soft Kill, you know, not this thing that's very, very apparently on the darker tip. And you know, you're providing maybe something slightly adjacent, but a little more thoughtful.
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't heard all 9 tracks. I've heard 3, and I've heard different versions of all 3, except for Pray For Me. But you know, I think that there's still that part of you that maybe not consciously goes that way, but very naturally goes that way. I think that's still what you're doing. Honestly, that's why it's not that far afield from any of the other bands you've done.
Yeah, I think there are people who play music who I know a lot of them who like very unapologetically are like, no, I ape, you know, like I see something that I like, and I set out to like emulate it. You know, if I if I love Dinosaur Jr., I want to be in a band that sounds like Dinosaur Jr., and I will be like study what it is to be Dinosaur Jr. and do my best. And that's fine. That serves a purpose. I think a lot of people do want just kind of more of a sound. So whatever, and then there are the people who like don't ever want to be accused of completely aping an artist. So I think I fall into this category, but what we probably do is just hope that if we ape like 100 of them a little bit, no one will be able to pinpoint like where the influences are coming from. No, I just feel like you get these different inputs, and when I'm writing, I'm not only paying attention to one input. It's not like I'm not checking it against the Sister of Mercy meter to make sure it's like in the green, like, okay, cool, it sounds enough like Sisters of Mercy. But I think that I am just like, I have a riff that maybe subconsciously reminds me of a chord progression of, just kind of takes me somewhere else, and that will probably inform my vocal phrasing. And then I'll realize later that like, oh, I think without realizing it, that was kind of this part of this Pixie song, or, something. But anyway, my point is there are people who like, they enjoy being in bands that sound like a band that they love, and then there are people who don't get any joy out of that, and I think I don't get much joy out of that. But I think the other part of the problem is I'm not enough of a musician to even know how to dissect the shit to do that if I wanted to. So I really respect people that can do that, because they are like, really analytic and really kind of able to kind of break it down the theory and absorb it and become it. And that's just requires a whole lot of intelligence that I don't have.
I think most really original things are born of people who, like you said, are paying attention to these different inputs, but also have limitations. I think if you're limited, you're forced to invent, because you have no one to really, you can't really copy someone because you don't have the ability to. So you're forced to sort of pull something from thin air.
Right.
That kind of explains everyone from, the Sex Pistols to Big Black in a way, because these people, they had their limitations. These were not Juilliard trained, Berklee School of Music trained musicians. They were people who could barely play.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like yeah, you learn how to juggle like this famous juggler, but right before showtime, we're gonna like remove an arm.
Mm.
So like you start a band and you're sort of looking to these big, huge recording budget kind of metal bands, but like your band has $300. So like, what's your $300 version of this, thing that you've been chasing? And a lot of times that's where like the exciting shit happens, because it's just like two circumstances that shouldn't be happening together, and you end up with it's a economy of style, right? I think the most creative shit happens under constraints.
That's why I always find myself trying to figure out where, like, especially Norwegian black metal comes from, because of the inverted chords. And obviously their recordings were god awful, which lent to kind of the mood. But like the idea of the inverted chord in and of itself, I can't find a father to it. And as analytical as my mind can be, especially when it comes to music and music history, I go back to like classical, maybe, but even then, like the idea that they're playing things backwards, like the devil's trichord, you know what I mean? But they're playing it backwards or inverted. Like, was it someone who was just completely untrained and played a guitar wrong and it sounded good? It almost it would almost kind of have
It
to
might
be.
have been. Yeah, when no one's telling you where to put your fingers, you put them, you just try that shit yourself, right? And it's either that or it was somebody who was just so contrarian that they were like, yeah, I'm just going to completely like, what's the most wrong shit that I could do right now? How can I offend guitar? No, how can I use this guitar to offend in any way that I can? Maybe, I don't know.
It would kind of almost have to be Hellhammer's fault, kind of, you know. I can't think of anybody else who came close to doing something like that precursor to them.
I don't know.
You know, it's just it's interesting where these disparate oddball sounds come from. I think everything that you do on your records has it has a sound that's kind of almost unidentifiable in a way, because the guitar sound has there's a creepiness to it that's not, like you said, Sisters of Mercy adjacent, or you know, even if you go back to like some of the more obscure like dark wave stuff, like they're still playing in a mode, in a style. Your guitar sound has an odd quality that I cannot put my finger on.
I can tell you what it is. I don't think I'm very good at tuning. So I think a lot of that is just the guitar is kind of out of tune. And the other thing is, to that point about like constraints, I only started writing songs for this project, Damien Dunn, because I had just quit As Friends Rust in the early 2000s, and I was like bandless, and there was a guitar in my apartment. My girlfriend played guitar, and I just started tinkering with it. And because I didn't know anything about playing guitar, because I had always really like stayed in my lane, didn't want to know shit about an instrument, and you guys leave me alone about lyrics, and we'll just, you know, we'll all get along. So I was like, I'm just a singer. I don't know anything about instruments. So, but somebody told me that if I tuned a drop D, I could play a power chord, which is apparently plenty easy enough, right? It's just 2 fingers. But I could do it with just 1 finger if I tuned to drop D. I could just bar an entire fret with 1 finger. Didn't have to be graceful or you know, coordinated or anything. So that's what that whole like the Stay Black record, which is mostly like that acoustic guitar that I wrote those songs on, that I recorded with, is just like 1 dumb clunky finger sort of sliding up and down the thing. But I've had people that I've tried to play with over the years, like really, really good. What I learned is well, Tyler works and he's great, and Andy was like super good before that, but there were a lot of like very good guitarists who would tell me that they can't play because I wanted to just sing. They were like, can't play these and make them sound the way, like I'm using your guitar and it doesn't sound right. So, you know how to play guitar.
When I'm down and out, then go uptown until my body sweats it out. If I could find some peace of mind, I hate to say, I'd go downtown anyway. I bang my head against the wall until it opens, then rip my brain right from the skull to make me a new man. I only get high so I don't get low. Could check myself in, but it would only be for show. If I could find some peace of mind, it's safe to say I'd go downtown anyway.
Like I just learned last year, that was like early 2000s, right? And I just learned last year that I've been just squeezing the fucking shit out of my neck, like unnecessarily hard. Like I'm not just like barring with one finger. I seem to think that I need to like push the strings like through the fretboard, you know, to make sure they're down or something. I don't know why I've been doing this, but I recently realized that like you don't have to push those strings down very hard at all.
Well, no, I mean you're probably just afraid of fret buzz.
I don't know what it was. I just like I've just been playing it like very violently and crudely all these years, I guess. But so yeah, I'm not a guitarist, and I think maybe that's part of what sounds different. Is just like those parts are being, you know, written by or played by someone who has no fucking clue what they're doing.
That's honestly the most fun way to approach it. And you know, also the way you write songs is it has an economy to it, but it's still there's that extra I don't know if it's the influence from the amount of like metal and like guttural hardcore that you've loved, that I love. You don't approach what could be construed as almost a pop-based song like a pop-based song. It's still like you're attacking it a little bit, you know, like there's an aggression to the way the song is actually put together that's kind of apparent. You could almost see some of these songs being a metal song. You know, I mean, Pray For Me, even though we've ascertained that it has a very dark element, dark wave, post-punk, gothy element. All you have to do is overdrive that guitar a little bit and growl the vocals, and it's a metal song. There's a metal song in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you think that's kind of like where all of this is coming from just those years of violent music coming through in a non-violent format?
Probably. I've definitely noticed in some of the older. I haven't really looked for it on the new songs, but on a lot of the older Damien Dunn stuff, I would notice there'd be like guitar accents, like, you know, that were clearly sort of informed by doomy kind of heavier sort of metal stuff. I think in my mind, what it is I like that kind of dark post-punky stuff that is still rock. It's still being played by instruments and it still has teeth, like some of the meaner songs on Pixies' Trompe Le Monde, the sad punk, or you know, like where there's just a lot of or Subculture, this like plodding, dark kind of, you picture that sort of goth nightclub 90s kind of thing, but it's like those are real instruments and there's like some grit to it, but it's structured in a really loopy kind of new wave. It's very, it puts you in the same sort of like color space as like Billy Idol or something, right?
Yeah.
That's the shit that I like. I think it's, again, like, I think there's nothing wrong with just going like, I just want to do Sisters of Mercy-ish kind of like cold, wavy stuff, and I want to just sound like a throwback to that kind of thing. I'm just not like, I don't really want to do that. If I did want to do it, though, it would look a lot more like Billy Idol than Sisters of Mercy or whatever is going around these days.
There's really something to be said about the first few Billy Idol post Generation X albums that I think people overlook because they were popular, but they were incredibly like dark sex, like S&M dungeon type songs.
Yeah.
And he's singing songs about like these really gnarly, like French films, like or was it German? Eyes Without a Face was a German film, I think, actually. That's one of the most screwed up movies to ever have been committed to film. And he's writing a top 40 song about it. That's something that I think probably we're missing in what could be called popular music right now. There's no...
Yeah, music used to be a little darker and a little more cynical. You know, that was kind of I wouldn't even say like with punk stuff. I think it was more kind of like new wave. There was like a sort of a more like cynical, skeptical, you know, smart ass kind of darkness that yeah. Anyway, but I loved that particular intersection of like you had the dark sort of new wave post-punk influences, but then there was also like, you know, there was some leather and some neon, and it was like that was just a great little moment. And that's to me like in my DNA, like those were like, that's what the summers sounded like when I was a kid, like on the radio. Like I love that sort of yeah, that plodding man, I'm gonna end up saying groove. I'm just not gonna
sleaze is probably a better way to put it, because it had a sheen of sleaze over it that made it dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's that. Now that I'm thinking about it, that is what Damien Dunn is. There is that sleaze to it. That's not glammy sleaze. It's like there's a sheen of the dirtiness of reality itself, just laying over the top of everything, and it lends to the aesthetic.
Yeah,
you know, it makes sense to me anyway. But whenever we talk, we end up like dissecting.
yeah.
You know,
well, I think like you do. I mean, while I've never been like about like emulating one particular thing, you do conjure a character. Like I do this kind of like with vocals. You're playing a character. I think that started. I didn't always do that. I think at one point I was like just screaming, and then at somewhere along the line I started sort of like conjuring characters. So songs will have very different voices or perspectives or whatever. But I think in the same way, you sort of have a character or an avatar or like a mood board for your band as a whole. And I would say that like that's what I kind of gravitate. That's where my mind goes more than whatever kind of Joy Division-y thing or super programmed kind of cold wavy sort of stuff. My mind always goes to like Jesus and Mary Chain, Billy Idol, like, you know, even like a little Ramones. Like there's this Ray-Bans Wayfarers, leather jackets, a little bit of neon, a little bit of Dry Ice, you know. And it's like and it's very bass forward, and the drums may or may not be programmed. If they're being played live, they're trying to sound programmed because it's a beat, you know. And I like that sort of seedy, leathery kind of rock and roll, new wave, post-punk, dark shit.
You call him, he'll answer that old faithful cancer love. Destroyer, romancer, your favorite disaster love. Sinking, soaring,
Oh man. Well, you realize that we once again accomplished 4 hours.
Oh fuck, man.
That-
Do you want to talk about the Damien Dunn record real quick? Like, for like
at, at least a little bit.
yeah.
I mean, we did enough to glean 20 minutes. I'm not going to do a 2-parter again because I know I punished people with that.
Shit out of this, man. This is, it was this or Walking Dead for me. So this is way better.
There's something about when you and I get together on a fucking podcast where we burn through half of a work day drinking wine and bullshitting about music that becomes this epic, like, just dissertation on life and religion. And to me, it all feels crucial.
And it's good for me because I need the practice. Like, I've been trying to get better at insulting entire swaths of bands and styles of music that are very close to the hearts of like our own fan base. I need the practice like at doing that more diplomatically, less offensively. And I think I'm getting better.
Less vitriol this time, for sure.
Yeah. No, look, there's definitely a level of respect. There's a work ethic and a dedication to craft that I nor any of my bandmates have ever had, or understood. I mean, we're not all like talentless, like cavemen on our instruments or anything, but like nobody's ever really been sort of disillusioned in quite that kind of way. I'm sure there are people among us who would like love the success, but like that shit don't last, it only lasts as long as you are good looking, and like none of us are that good looking, and we're fucking 40. I'm 46.
Yeah.
Like this ain't the time to make it big, that's fine. I've oddly, like, as comical as the amount of bands I've been in has been, I've never wanted that to be my career. Never. It just, if it even seemed achievable, it was just obviously too fleeting and fickle for me to feel. I'm pretty risk averse. That just looks like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
How long is that going to last? So not my thing. But I hope this record makes us very rich. No, I think it's a good record. I don't even remember. I keep talking about As Friends Rust, and we're here to talk about Damien Dunn.
Let's
talk about the Damien Dunn record. I need to look up the songs because I did such a good job forgetting that it was even going to come out.
All right, so Ma, Black Moon, Pray For Me, Inexorable, Young Drugs, Always on Fire, Findom, Gentleman Thief, and Bounty and Blight.
Yeah. Inexorcisable.
I'm so, it has been 4
it's
hours.
It's not a word, so.
And my contacts are glazed over. But,
no, it's not a. I was like, I'm going to get in trouble for that word, but it's not a real word. But just inexorcisable, as in like impossible to exercise. That's going to be one of the singles we release. Actually, that's one of the songs that Tyler wrote, and it's very fucking cool. Has this like sort of policey beginning. Cool song. So what do we talk about? What do we got here? Yeah, so there's Pray For Me, then there's Inexorcisable, and then I think it's and then there's going to be Bounty and Blight, which is the aforementioned duet. Yeah.
With a project like this on, like Austin does a great job. It's a phenomenal label. I bring him up a lot because he does release a lot of great shit. What does a single look like for a project on his label. It's just a digital release, a push to the publications. It's not like it was with a single way back in the day. It's just that, right? Just a push right now, correct?
It's just a push that you go into knowing may or may not have any impact whatsoever. Because that's the thing. You're pushing it on publications and platforms that are more and more just news aggregators than kind of sources of information, opinions you can trust, columns, written by people whose perspectives you enjoy and kind of give some, authority to. Like, you don't have that anymore, it feels like. So yeah, it's more or less just a push. This is the first time that we're using a PR group. Which has been pretty cool. The Pray For Me was on Decibel, which was pretty good. I'm not sure how it translates into visibility, especially when there's still a 5-month wait, for the record. But
right.
Yeah. So, but we did a video for that one. You saw the video.
Yep.
I shouldn't say we did a video. They did a video for that one. That's not us in the video playing music.
No.
We don't know who that is. In XXXVI, we were in that video, at least the end of it. That one, 2 days ago, I got a Facebook reminder that it had been a year since we filmed that video. So that's a testament to how fucking long this record has taken. Like, yeah, we made that video a year ago, and we were like, we thought we needed to rush it, because we thought we were going to have to release this single and video very soon, and then the other one, Bounty and Blight, that's the duet with Allison. This is also kind of speaking to the kind of how easy and efficient and kind of on the same kind of wavelength the workflow was. I proposed this idea of like doing a video where we just have like highly contrasted profiles. I sing my stuff from one side of the screen, she sings hers from the other, we sing them together, together. It just very simple with a little kind of there'll be like a little animated section in the bridge, but it was just something easy and inexpensive to execute. Find a white wall in your house and film.
Yeah.
And she sent that footage to me like just super fucking fast, and it's better quality than my footage, but we'll try to make it work. But yeah, so that'll be a video too that I think will be pretty simple but poignant. And then the rest of the songs are fucking weird, man. They get kind of synthy. They get kind of electronic. They get at one point a little fast and aggressive. The other song that Tyler wrote, Young Drugs, which I'm realizing is back to back with his other song, Inexorcisable. Yeah, it's cool. I don't know what the future brings for this. It feels kind of like one of those. I never understood when reading up on kind of certain artists how they would just like lay a project down for a few years and pick it up like 5-10 years later. But like, I don't know what to do at this point. I think like Tyler's kind of got his hands full where he moved, and I've got my hands full with other music, and also like it just doesn't feel. I don't know that I feel all that Damien Dunny right now. This is not a way to sell a new Damien Dunn record. I just, I think the whole thing's dead, man.
I think it's over. We're fucked.
Yeah, fucked the whole thing.
I'm obviously not going to put that out just predicated on our relationship, but
whatever, man. Whatever.
I know it's whatever with you. And
I feel, man. I just feel like I'm really happy with this record. I think that anybody that's heard old shit is gonna like it more. Anybody that has not heard the old shit will be disappointed if they dig into the old shit, because I think this is the record that people are gonna be like, here we go. Mm-hmm. But that said, I don't know what we're supposed to do with that. You know, we're all like, we're barely a band, and it's more kind of a recording thing at this point. But it's I think it's a pretty good record. Anyway, if you like, I don't know, post-punky dark rock and roll shit with trap beats and acoustic duets. Basically, if you like any style of music, there's a song for you on this record. Yeah.
So if this is the one to go out on, it's a pretty great record to have as a swan song, at least for a band that is out in the world. If it just becomes a recording project from here on in, groovy. I doubt that's going to be the case, but you never know.
Yeah. I don't, and I think the point of it all is just to, like, for me at this point, I think I've just reached a point where I'm of an age where if people haven't already, sometimes long ago, decided that this is kid shit that they're not going to do anymore, if they've been on the fence, they're getting off of it now.
Yeah.
It's reached a point where it is inexcusable for, I think, most 46-year-old dads to still be fucking with music when there are, soccer games and there's just other shit to deal with, right?
Yeah. But here we are.
Yeah, but here we are.
Still making music. I'm still doing journalism of some sort.
I started feeling that way for a minute, where I was like, at some point, and I don't know whose voice this was, but I was like, at some point, I'll just have to stop doing bands, like writing music. But like, why? People don't stop knitting if they like knitting. I like making. It's really silly if you think about it, but I like getting together with a group of other adults and making up songs. It's like, it's fucking ridiculous. But it feels accomplished, because you make the song out of nothing. There was like silence there. And now you guys you grown ass adults just hummed a melody essentially and made a little jingle together. It's cute, like you're making music. Adorable. But I fucking love it. And I don't see any reason to stop doing it, like, until you physically can't do it anymore. There's no like emotional or like no reason correlated in any shape with like age or maturity to stop doing. Just fucking make music, man. And so I think I've reached a point where, like, that turn that I could have made toward just shedding the projects one by one, which is easy because they want to dissolve.
Yeah.
They want, if you don't water them, they want to die. They hate that you're watering them, actually. Fans just want to everyone has better shit to do.
Yeah.
Right? But it's fun. Why stop? And I just feel I've reached a point in my life where, like, not only did I miss that turn, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking turn it up. Actually, I don't think I've been in enough bands. I don't think I've tried enough different shit. Like, there's a bit of that, but there's also just there's a bit of, like, again, that sort of like awareness of, like, I'm not long for this world. And this makes me happy.
Mhm.
And the amount of happiness that I get from like sending someone a really annoying voice message that's like, okay, so what about if like on the 3, if the accent was like on the 3.5 instead of the 3? So instead of like, da, 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 it was da, 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 da. What do you think? I don't know. Feel free to disregard if you have a strong argument again. I'm fine with that. And then you send that, and then they're just like, no, I like it. Let me try it. And then they send you something back, and then the next thing you know, like 2 weeks later, you guys have a song that just is like, if no one else in the world ever hears it or thinks it, the two of you in that moment are like, God damn, we just wrote a hell of a fucking hair metal song.
Right.
Or whatever it is. That's just like, you don't have to stop doing that. You don't have to embrace this idea that like you gotta just sell your guitars and just focus on the siding. That's the project this summer. That shit's important, and of course do all that stuff too, but like you never have to stop doing something that you enjoy. It look, for other fucking generations, it was collecting stamps or coins or whatever fucking sketchy World War II paraphernalia, whatever. We like to fucking make songs.
We're the only subculture where continuing to do music past the preconceived notion of a prime is a sin. Johnny Cash made music until he died in his like late 70s.
Yeah.
That was acceptable. That was okay.
Tupac's still making music.
He's dead.
Yeah.
Still making music.
Yeah. Guru still putting out albums.
Since we're punks, we have to stop when we're no longer considered youthful. And
yeah, you have to stop when you're gray, because it's no longer, you're now an interloper. You've overstayed your welcome in a scene that has an expiration date, and you're supposed to age out of. If you don't leave after a certain birthday, you're a fucking creep who's missing the point, and like, yeah, and that's just so I think the mistake there is that the people deciding that hardcore is for the young are not realizing that like the generation, we don't have enough history. The hardcore doesn't have enough of a history to really like make that call yet, right? Like we don't quite know yet how hardcore ages. We don't know if bands from the 80s should be completely counted out yet. I can say with some pretty good empirical evidence that most of them should, because they just put out, at best, they put out really shitty music, right? Yeah. At worst, they just are really shitty people, or just believe in really shitty things. But I don't think that that's enough. I don't think the testing has been like, it's just not conclusive, right? Like, yeah. We don't know. I mean, maybe hardcore is going to be best when it's all a bunch of fucking old experienced people at the helm.
I mean,
certainly wasn't like the best when it was a bunch of kids at the helm.
No, I think we frittered a lot of it away, and as it matured, it got cool for a time, and maybe it'll go there again. I can only hope.
And when she tells you that she loves you, you'll know she's talking about me. And when it's time
When's it coming out?
May 19th.
May 19th. Over a year from its...
Yeah.
That's par for the course in this day and age.
We were done mixing in February, so yeah, like a year and 3 months.
It was done the last time we talked, actually.
I think so.
It was.
Yeah. Or wrapped up, or it was pretty much done. Yeah, it's been a long time. It was pretty disheartening, pretty frustrating for a while, but I just kind of gave in. I was like, I guess this is how it works nowadays. There's nothing I can do about it. Actually, there is something you can do. The frustrating thing for me is like, it's one thing if you're waiting all that time because the label is going to be making thousands of, copies and whatever, but it's like, these are small runs.
Yeah.
If we waited, 15 months or whatever for 200 or 300 copy press of a record, that because of the oversaturation of options and accessibility, no one may listen to them. So that's always kind of a weird thing, and then you're always battling the whole like, do I skip a release and just put it out? Because the way I feel is like I'm excited. I'm the most excited about a record like, it's when you're mixing it, or like the minute it's done. But it does not take long for you to start second guessing certain choices or catching shit you missed, and you get in your own head. Maybe not everybody. Again,
no, that's everybody who makes music. I think if anyone were made to sit on a release for this amount of time, they will self-examine, self-doubt, and ultimately try to jettison at least half of the release.
I had to stop listening to it. Yeah. I had to stop listening to it. And yeah, there was also the part of me that was like, if I don't stop listening to it, I'm going to end up fucking putting half these songs out before the label wants me to. So yeah, I just had to sort of tune it out. It was a long fucking time. It's kind of frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do about that. I think we might just end up having to move toward a model where, like, here's what I think is going to happen. I think that labels like Mind Over Matter, like all of these labels who are sort of who are satisfying the kind of vinyl collectors and whatever, like, don't stop. People want that shit. People want physical. I want physical kind of, expressions of the albums, record or tape, in Europe or Japan, CD, whatever, like, of course, make the stuff. The release date being dependent on the physical release,
it's over.
That's got to change. That's over.
I have enough
days are done, and at this point, if we're talking about a few hundred copies of a record that you are probably not even going to sell all of, the release date's not going to be dependent on that pressing. The pressing's going to happen after the fact. If you like it enough, if you feel like you can move it, have at it. If you don't. But I think we're reaching a point where, like, artists are not, well, I say this because I'm an artist who's not okay with that weight. But I also have a lot of friends who are artists who are completely okay with that weight and think that I need to settle the fuck down.
Mm.
Or like, dude, that's just the way it is. Don't worry about it. Write new stuff. Keep yourself busy. It'll come out when it comes out. But to me, if I wrote it at the beginning of if I recorded at the beginning of 2022, it means I wrote it during 2021.
Yeah.
And now I'm supposed to chill out and just let it come out in the middle of 2023. It's no longer reflecting the moment that I wrote it. It's like, you see how quickly a meme becomes outdated, or whatever. And the songs are starting to feel that way to me too, because life is becoming more memey and our attention spans are more memey, right?
Yeah.
So, like the songs are probably more, I don't know. I don't want a record to come out and like I don't even remember what a lyric was about because it was such a short-lived topic, cultural moment that everyone gave a shit about for 2 days and then forgot about.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
There's enough examples right now of albums that released digitally and then the release comes far later. And the faithful will still buy because that market they're immovable. People like me, we're going to wait. I'll wait 2 years for a record I paid for.
Yeah.
I want that fucking thing. And that's the end of it.
I've had this conversation with Mind Over Matter a lot, and he gets it. He's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
He'll pre-order shit and wait. He understands wait times. He understands lead times. He's more like we are when it comes to a record. But from what I gather, a lot of his audience is not. And but yeah, there are a lot of examples of. I kind of feel like for me, I'm not going to pre-order a record. I liked one single. I don't know if the rest of it sucks.
Yeah,
probably does. I'm not pre-ordering. I will pre-save it, and when it comes out, it'll appear at the top of my Apple Music library, and I'll listen to it 2, 3, 4 times. And if I like it enough, I will buy that record.
Yeah.
Because I know that I like every minute of it. And there's a finite amount of real estate in my record cabinet. And I've sort of pledged to not exceed the boundaries of that record cabinet. So where I am is now, if I want new records, I'm forced to remove records that, they didn't get cut on the last call, but now their time's up. So like it keeps the selection fresh. I'm not a collect. I want records that like I want to gradually end up with a collection that's just entirely timeless, quintessential, like my classics.
Yeah.
Right. Or records that I really like putting on in the background if we have people over at the house. I want to put on a record. I don't want it to be a focal point. It can be Fugazi's Instrument, or it can be some, Tangerine Dream or something, but I like background shit like that.
Yeah.
I like R&B kind of stuff on vinyl. Solange, Beyonce's sister.
Mm-hmm.
That album, A Seat at the Table, that's a record to have on vinyl.
No kidding.
Great album. Yeah, shit like that. I just like more chill stuff. I've noticed that I've been funneling like a lot of the punk and hardcore stuff out of my records, and if it's important enough to me to have, buy it on tape. I feel like that's the format for that stuff, and then my vinyls for more chill shit for the most part.
That's wild.
Yeah, I have formats for genres. That's what I've learned about myself. And actually, it's not even formats. It's because the only formats I have are vinyl or tape.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I have maybe because of the spatial limitations, I've had to create certain rules for myself. And basically, it's that no metal on vinyl. I got rid of I have a friend who's not much of a record collector, but was like starting to buy more metal records. So I sent him my metal records. And then I found that like, yeah, I on vinyl, I kind of just want like chill shit. I want hip hop and R&B and like indie stuff and just mellow stuff. And then tapes were really for metal, but it started being hardcore stuff too.
To me, I'll always need the things I love in hardcore on vinyl because that's how I bought them originally.
But
Yeah.
the tape thing, I love. I love cassettes. I love the new like metal cassette trade that's happening right now. I think it's phenomenal, and it's cheaper, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, the hardcore thing was mostly vinyl for me too. I mean, it kind of spanned across tape, vinyl, and CD, but it was mostly vinyl. I just don't. To me, it's just not a. I don't know. I don't have much hope of connecting physically with the layout of a punk release in general as I do with a metal release or something else these days. So I kind of feel, it's kind of weird to say, but I almost feel like punk and hardcore is the one genre that like I almost don't need on a physical format at this point. I have a bunch of it still, but like I don't know.
Oh, there's a lot to regret in a 6x8. A lot of things to wish you'd never done. But the thing that sent you to this place is sure as hell not wrong. She was in your house. She was on your man. The only thing one can. She was in your house. She was on your man. You did the only thing one can. You heard someone in your room that night. Someone enjoying your mister. And before you could hit that light, you had already shot your sister.
Maybe expectations, like in terms of like subject matter or kind of, there's a point of view they want from the band, I think maybe. And to me, I think that's on the new songs because I think that point of view is inseparable from, I mean, that just is the As Friends Rust kind of.
I think that carries over too, though, for Ecstasis and for Damien Dunn, because it doesn't codify.
You know what I'm saying? You're not marrying an ideal or a scene per se. Ecstasis is definitely a death metal band, hands down, but it's not. It's very, like, almost not purist, but close to purist in a way. Death metal, in the best way possible. You're not trying to, be more like Obituary, be more like this. It's fucking raw, and that's what makes it really, really good, and gives it its own sort of life, its own attitude. I think that carries over seamlessly into Damien Dunn stuff, because there's that attitude again. It's always about the attitude, the way you present yourself, as almost not adversarial, but definitely bristly. And I've talked to you enough that I know you're really not. But when you're in the zone and you're on stage and you're plying your trade, making your music, there's always that vibe that anything could happen. Anything can happen, and it's probably going to be a little dangerous. And I think we should all kind of expect that from people that we're entertained by or whose music we adhere to, because we're supposed to be challenged. We're supposed to be like in the ape brain, looking back at the car accident so we know what not to do. Right? There's that just part of us that needs to know what's underneath. What's hiding under my bed, man? What is that thing? I think that's the kernel of why we like roller coasters, why we love horror movies. That's truly entertaining. Maybe that's just psychosis in my own mind, but to me, that's the draw. That's the draw to whatever you do. I don't know if you've ever considered that. But...
No, not really. But I guess I do try to. I always liked those songs, I'll stick with the Dan O'Mahony thing. Like, I like those records that had songs on them that presented an idea that was maybe new to me, or more often, I guess, just tackled a subject I hadn't heard tackled in a punk song, in a hardcore song. And then you look at all these other bands that are just beating the same issues to death, or worse, in the same ways, right? At least beat them to death in like multiple ways, And I was guilty of this too, early on in bands, I think, but it was just always so much more interesting to me, where it was like, yeah, like, wouldn't you rather be someone who wrote a song that like created a little spark of like, oh shit, I don't think I've ever heard a song about this, or I don't believe a singer's ever quite spoken to me that way, and I'm not sure I like his tone. that kind of shit. Like, I want to be like, I just don't want to. I guess the fear is like, I just don't want to sound like whatever bands people think we sound like. We get clumped in, back to that whole, like, our contemporaries, Braid, Boy Sets Fire, Thursday, I guess, toward the end, like bands like that, all very talented bands, great at what they do.
But I can't picture the people that sing in these bands, like home listening or home reading, like Cormac McCarthy. I know that's probably very snobbish to come out of my mouth, but to me, I could picture Dan O'Mahony doing that easily, even though he was very rough in his way. Like, there was an intelligence to that roughness, that viciousness. That's probably something rarefied in me but I look for that. I seek that out. If I hear a song and I can tell someone's a thinker, someone's reaching for something else other than just their situation.
Yeah. And also, and this is, I think, a thing about Dan that I remember like feeling early on with like No for an Answer and 411 and shit. It's not just like these are smart lyrics and he's sort of not really concerned about the conventions of hardcore in terms of like topics. Like he like finally somebody like is singing about like kind of more interesting shit. And like I think actively going out of his way to look for new takes and new topics, right? Which is like no one else is even fucking bothering.
Yeah.
You know? But beyond all of that, you also got the sense that like obviously he's very smart and he's trying to bring new perspective to the table, which is which was lacking, but also because he's smart, probably he's a bit of a dick.
Yeah,
you can sort of hear that, and that it's you brought up the jabbiness, like, but like I like that. Yeah, there should be like, if you have the audacity to think, you know, to get on a stage like with a mic in your hand and think that anybody should give a shit about what you have to say. I think you should just have something interesting to say, or at least an interesting way to say something uninteresting.
Well, that's why I like Paul Bearer so much, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fucking like lay it down, scold, preach. Like you're up there with a microphone in your hand because you are angry and have some shit to let out. So please fucking let it out, because like everyone else is just up here like showing off their fucking quiet scream techniques or whatever, you know, and it's just a bunch of like kind of bland vanilla like brutality or whatever, but like it's all style and there's just no fucking substance. It feels like to a lot of shit where like, yeah, just put a new idea on the table once in a while, you know. Just a new voice in the room.
Yeah. If you're gonna talk loud, say something. In all reality, like there's a severe lack of voices that are extreme in delivery that are also giving you something to think about, like beneath that. I think Starkweather was a band that did that really, really well from Philadelphia. But bands in that ilk, it was always just people just trying to sound scary or talk about things that I need to be moved.
Yeah.
But
that's a big that's something else that gets conflated a lot. Is just like brutality like of a voice. There's absolutely no correlation with how fucking brutal and angry you sound with how interesting or how just completely fucking boring you are. Because it's like that voice doesn't mean anything if it's devoid of like if it's not telling an interesting story, and if it just doesn't sound like authentic. There has to be character, you know. And a lot of those vocals are just like, I can't fucking scream like that. No way. I don't have the throat for that. My screaming voice did not last more than a few years, really. It was a very small window and I fucking blew it. I just I don't have the stuff for it, you know, that other like screamers have.
That was part of what I liked. I'm going to be honest with you. What I really, really liked about when you would scream was I could understand what you were saying.
And I'm a death metal head. I love early Cannibal Corpse records. I love Napalm Death, all that shit. But you never really knew what the fuck they were saying. The lyrics could have very easily not been what they were actually saying. I like that I could tell what was coming out of your mouth. Guttural vocals are great. They're fun. Sounds awesome. But when someone's really projecting and they have something to say and you can hear it and it's discernible, it gets a point across in a way that these other guttural voices they're not really going to affect an intellectual response, if that makes sense.
They can't.
They're not coming across.
You chase the thing that, like, if you're playing in a hardcore band, I think you're subconsciously always you want to bring to the table all of the things that made you fall in love with hardcore, right? And to me, like, all of those bands the singers were completely, you understood every single fucking word they were saying. It was direct, it was directed like at you. Very confrontational, but like crystal clear, and that was always like important to me. Again, it's back to the whole, like, why do you if you don't have anything to say, or like if it's just like, technique and screamy growliness or whatever, like, what's the point? I don't know. I guess it can still sound very good, but what does it mean?
On the other end of the spectrum, Glenn Benton, you can understand, but those lyrics, man. I loved them, though. I did love them for how confrontational and cartoony they could be, right up until and including Once Upon the Cross. I love those first couple Deicide records so much.
I've never really given Deicide a chance because I think that cartooniness was, like, to me, I just wasn't. Maybe coming from South Florida, I was too, like, the Marilyn Manson thing was, like, too in our faces, where, like, the cartooniness that you're talking about was, like, just, I couldn't do it, like, after having been kind of at, like, the epicenter. Like, Fort Lauderdale was, like, getting so I don't know, like, cartoonish in general.
So you got stuck with that before all of us did, because the Spooky Kids were running amok in Fort Lauderdale at that time. Did you have occasion to have seen that spectacle when it was still?
I saw them several times when they were still under the Spook. I don't think I ever saw them after the Spooky Kids got dropped, but I saw them several times as the Spooky Kids. Sometimes once in front of maybe like 10 or 12 people. Forget who they were playing with, but I was apparently there for whoever they were playing with. But they weren't bad. They did what they did well. It was very of the times, kind of alternative, sort of whatever. But at the time, they were still, like, he was just like a dude in a t-shirt and jeans. And I think one of them was wearing like a prom dress or something, but otherwise they just looked like any other kind of local band or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I unfortunately got to see. Well, when I saw the Spooky Kids, it was fun. It was different for what I was used to in Pennsylvania, for certain. But right after, like right when Marilyn Manson first became Marilyn Manson, the band, I'd gone to see Danzig on the Danzig 4 tour. And opening were two bands I wasn't fully familiar with. One was Marilyn Manson. One was Korn. The Korn record wasn't even out, I think, yet. And I remember seeing it. I remember seeing Korn open and these guys in Adidas suits, and one had bagpipes. And I was like, wait, this could be cool for about a second. And I was starting to be like, okay, these guys might like hardcore or something. Oh, never mind. Wind out of the sales. And there's a whole generation now of people who are into hardcore and making hardcore adjacent music within the scene that are like 1,000,000% influenced by nu metal.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
You shift that. There's like this like you find like the median age of like the hardcore kid of today, right? And then there's this scope where like you go back to however many years to like whatever that sort of point of adolescence, the average, age where people start getting kind of interested in music, whatever. And you just kind of have to shift it. So it's, it makes sense. Like today, that scope would only extend back to like what, 2000, 2005, something, 2010. I don't even know. I think it's probably a smaller window than we realize. Like, so I guess it makes sense. It's just, it's bizarre to us because I think that now that scope has shifted kind of completely past us. There's no part of it that like isn't.
I feel like the punk is gone.
It's maybe. I don't know.
There you have it, my friends. My epic discussion with Damien Moyal, parsed down to a very short, concise, close to 2-hour episode. As you can hear, my dogs are baying in the background, so it is time for me to bid you a fond adieu. But I have to tell you, it's always a pleasure to hang out with my friend Damien. I implore you, head over to mindovermatterrecords.com and pick up the physical copy of Total Power. It is a modern masterpiece. That being said, I've been Peter. He's been Damien. You've been beautiful. And from 3:33 a.m. Productions, this has been the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Good night, everyone.